Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, what if I told you that one of the absolute happiest shows ever made for television actually hit a story far more complicated than most people ever knew? Today, we're going to peel back the shiny, nostalgic veneer of the 1950s Mickey Mouse Club. We're looking way past the catchy songs, the bright smiles, and those iconic mouse ears to uncover the hidden emotional toll of early child stardom.
It's kind of a heavy thought, right? But what if the happiest show hid a tragic secret? We have to step back and ask if those smiling kids we all remember were actually carrying immense pressure, stress, and loss at an age when they really should have only been thinking about school and, well, just growing up. Were they simply living a dream, or was their childhood being forever altered behind closed doors?
To the public, these kids literally had it all. It was all about luck, fame, endless smiles, and pure wholesomeness. But behind the curtain, the private reality was vastly different. We're talking intense pressure, chronic stress, a stolen childhood, and massive adult expectations. It's a stark contrast, and it shows us just how different the magical, perfect picture that 1950s families trusted was from the complex, really unmagical reality these young performers lived every single day.
Let's dive into Section 1, the wholesome illusion and the 1950s TV boom.
Picture this. It's 1955. America is changing fast, and television is basically becoming the absolute center of family life. Millions of families sought out safe, exciting entertainment, and the Mouseketeers perfectly provided that. Almost overnight, these kids went from being regular children with big hopes to nationwide symbols of the perfect childhood. Now that sounds wonderful, right? Until you realize the deep psychological danger of becoming a symbol. Because once a child becomes a symbol, people stop seeing the full, real person.
Which brings us to Section 2, the adult machine, or the pressure behind the ears.
Imagine being a kid and facing this massive, overwhelming mountain of adult expectations. You've got to memorize every single line and song perfectly, hit your stage marks with precise timing, and sing and dance without error during grueling rehearsal schedules. We're talking 6-day work weeks here. Plus, they had to maintain a cheerful attitude on cue and stay strictly within their wholesome public image. They were expected to perform happiness like seasoned professionals, absolutely regardless of how tired, nervous, or overwhelmed they actually felt. If you compare the entertainment industry norms of the 1950s to today, the contrast is, well, it's pretty shocking. Today, we have regulated hours and systems designed to protect a child's mental well-being on set. But back then, the expectation was simply to obey and be thankful. The protections for mental health? Basically non-existent. The 1950s entertainment machine entirely lacked these modern safeguards, and kids were just expected to fit into this massive production system without a single complaint.
Because let's be real, childhood is supposed to be messy, right? It's supposed to be private. It's supposed to be full of awkward phases, mistakes, and personal growth. But by handing their image over to the studio, these young stars were losing that simple, messy freedom. They were losing the right to just be unknown kids who are allowed to make mistakes without millions of people watching and judging their every move.
Moving on to Section 3, the sudden silence, when the spotlight faded. So the actual run of the show is incredibly brief. We're talking a premiere and overnight fame in 55, peak popularity and strict image control in 56 and 57, and then, bam, an abrupt cancellation in 1958. I really want you to think about that. Imagine spending 3 formative years in an absolute whirlwind of fame, only to have it vanish overnight. It is deeply confusing. These kids were in the most crucial years of building their sense of self, completely tied to this massive show, and then it was just gone. Which leads to this really devastating question: what actually happens when the fame fades? Think about the immense emotional aftershock when the spotlight moves on, the production shuts down, the applause stops, but the child is left entirely alone to figure out who they are without the TV set and the fans to define them.
For a child, it literally feels like the end of their entire universe. While adults might process losing a job with some practical perspective, for a developing child whose entire identity and self-worth is tied to public praise, the loss of fame feels completely universe-shattering. Their whole reality was built around that daily performance. That brings us to Section 4, the lingering marks and life after the magic.
Take Annette Funicello, probably the most famous of the group. She carried this incredibly heavy burden of maintaining a beloved public image, even through serious illness later in life. Karen Pendleton faced a tragic car accident, leaving her unable to walk, a harsh, really painful reality that shattered the perfect television frame the public remembered. And others built quiet lives, always kind of wondering if people only cared about their childhood selves. Real life brings painful realities that the public never imagined for these former child stars.
It sets up this completely heartbreaking paradox of child fame. On one hand, you're seen by millions, cheered for the image, and remembered forever. But on the exact same token, you are invisible as a person. Your private struggles are ignored, and you have absolutely no control over the adult machine running your life. A child star becomes an icon, yet remains completely invisible as a real person with boundaries, fears, and limits.
And finally, Section 5, the true cost of fame. You know, nostalgia is this powerful mechanism. It smooths over all the rough edges, making the past look softer and hiding the pain of those trapped inside the glow. Our fond memories of the Mouseketeers' catchy songs and happy energy actively blind us to the immense pressure they were under to sell that very innocence. We get to enjoy the beautiful glow without ever really asking what it cost the children providing it. The tragedy is that they became symbols before they had the chance to become themselves. That really hits hard, doesn't it? Behind every bright TV memory were real kids trying to keep up with a life moving way faster than childhood ever should. They gave the whole world joy during the exact years when they were giving up parts of their own normal upbringing. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When you watch child stars today, are you seeing the full person, or are you just seeing the performance? As you leave this explainer, I really want you to reconsider how you consume child-driven media today. Just remember that behind every famous, highly polished smile is a real child who might be paying a massive price in privacy, identity, and freedom. Thanks for hanging out with me for this one, and always keep looking for the truth behind the image.